Sil cornered me and my sister on Dad's funeral. She was left fuming when the will was disclosed. Sister-in-law cornered me and my sister on Dad's funeral. She was left fuming when the will was disclosed. I, 45 male, and my sister, Ava, 41 female, recently experienced one of the most emotionally draining moments of our lives. Our father passed away after suffering a second heart attack in a year. It wasn't unexpected, I would say. He'd been battling heart issues for years. Nonetheless, it's still painful to lose your parent. In the middle of this, we have to deal with the toxicity of our adopted brother, John, and his wife, Luna. My parents had adopted him when he was 9 or 10. He was rescued by Child Protective Services. He'd come from a troubled home and with abusive parents. He's 2 to 3 years older than me, but was adopted after I and my sister was born. One of our uncles worked in Child Protective Services, and one evening he told my parents about how abusive parents mentally and physically tortured their unwanted son and how the team rescued him. My parents felt sorry for him and adopted him. While my parents gave John their love and stability he needed, he never truly bonded with Ava or me. I don't know why we couldn't ever blend. Always felt like he talked way mature than his age, was too preachy and tried to be too perfect. Maybe his past life had something to do with it. He always had his guards up. Eva and I felt he was pretentious. He was bossy in front of us, but acted innocent and gullible in front of our parents and elders. Eva and I saw through his manipulative tendencies. He used his tragic backstory as a weapon, constantly guilt-tripping my parents into showering him with affection and attention. When we were out studying and working hard to make something out of ourselves, John took another route. His bio parents didn't put him in school, neither in community school or daycare. After the adoption, my parents tried their best to give quality education to him, but school wasn't his thing. He lacked focus. My parents even took him for counseling, and there it came out that his fine motor skills were underdeveloped due to his abusive past. He faced challenges in focusing. My parents didn't force him to study. He made it till middle school. He was good at baking, though. His bio parents were bakers, and from there, he picked up that interest. My parents took this to be an opportunity to build his career around it. They enrolled him in baking and culinary classes. Then they got him trained under a professional to learn business acumen before setting up a store for him, while Ava and I worked hard to pave our careers. We both secured partial scholarships and took out loans for college. Not that our parents denied bearing for our education, just that we both were somehow very self-reliant. The problem was John never stopped relying on my parents. Then in his early 20s, he married Luna and they both are like peas in a pod, manipulative and toxic. They continued to lean on my parents for financial help. I can't count the number of times Dad bailed them out of trouble. Ava and I warned our parents about their behavior, but they brushed us off. They were convinced they were just helping their troubled son. Eventually, we stopped interfering. We both left home for college and built lives of our own. Though we always stayed in touch and had a loving relationship with our parents, whenever John came into the picture, it got weird. Our parents tried to bring us closer, but we just couldn't. A lot of our extended family and relatives, including John, blamed us for being arrogant. Eva and I were labeled as the wicked kids who hated their adopted brother, but that's not true at all. We were able to see through John's actions, which most people, including our parents, couldn't. While Eva and I settled in a different city, John bought a house across the street from my parents. Dad even helped him buy that place. John and Luna kind of emotionally hijacked our parents. Sometimes, Eva and I felt distant from our parents. Though we continued to visit them on special occasions, we kind of grew apart. Now Ava and I both are married and have kids. We're still close and gladly our parents get along well with each other, so we end up meeting at least once or twice per year. Things changed when we lost our mother during COVID. Dad was also infected, but he recovered. After Mom passed, Dad was lonely and we asked him to come and live with us, but he declined, insisting he wanted to stay in the family home where he and Mom had built their lives together. That house is very precious to him. A year back, he suffered from a heart attack but was able to make it. Since then, I don't know what happened that he started visiting us more often. Last month, he suddenly called me up and said he was on the way to my place and asked if that's okay with me. I said, sure, you're always welcome to my house. He came and hugged my children a little longer and said he was feeling very uneasy, so dropped by to meet the kids. 2 days later, he suffered another stroke and we rushed him to the hospital. Within hours, he succumbed to it. My wife informed everyone, including John and Luna. Eva and I were heartbroken, but our grief was quickly compounded by the drama that unfolded. I asked John to stay put there because we were to carry Dad's body to our family house for the funeral. But, no, John and Luna were already on their way to the hospital and asked us to wait for them. He started throwing weight that being the eldest son, he should be the decision maker about the funeral and stuff. They arrived at the hospital and made a scene. Luna wasted no time blaming Eva and me for not taking care of Dad, as he mostly traveled and lived with us in the last 1 year. She didn't even care that half of the waiting room was staring at us all. She screamed, "If you two hadn't dragged him all over the place, maybe he'd still be here." John didn't stop her, of course. He just stood there with his arms crossed, glaring at us. Eva wasn't one to back down and shout back, "We did more for Dad than you ever could. If you cared so much, maybe you could have tried taking care of him instead of treating him like your personal ATM." It was a tense and ugly moment. Dad was gone and we had a funeral to arrange. It was held at the family house where my parents had lived for decades. Eva and I had many memories there, but for John and Luna, it was a symbol of entitlement. Dad's lawyer was out of the country for a vacation. We had to wait for him to come back and disclose the will. Till then, it was a nightmare. As soon as we arrived at the house, they acted as if they were the owner and we were the guests. They had the advantage that they were local and were able to pull together funeral arrangements swiftly. We let them take the lead. It wasn't any sort of competition. He was also my dad's son and had equal rights as us, so we kinda let that slide. Luna suddenly became the lady in charge of the house. She ran from corner to corner, showing herself to be busy and painting a picture of a perfect daughter-in-law in front of family and friends. My wife and Eva were literally fuming at her drama. During the service, she couldn't stop talking about how Dad loved her more than me and Eva. She even quoted Dad saying he loved her children more than Eva and mine's. We all knew it was not true. My dad never differentiated between his grandchildren, that's for sure. After the service, as soon as the guests left, Luna cornered Eva and me and said smugly, "You two need to start packing your things. This house belongs to John now." Dad practically raised John himself. I was stunned by her audacity and kept staring at her, speechless. Eva asked, "What does she mean?" Luna said, "What's so surprising? This house is ours now. You two haven't even lived here for years. John deserves the house. He's the one who's been here for your parents, not you. We took care of them. Our children have more memory of this house than your children or you." Eva almost snapped at her, saying, "This house isn't yours. Not yet. And you don't get to decide what happens to it. Let's see what Dad's will actually says before you start playing landlord. Now back off before I beat the crap out of you." The argument got pretty intense, and Luna swore to drag out Luna by her hair once the will was disclosed. You won't believe what happened next. The next day, the lawyer called us at his office to share a copy of the will. Luna arrived with an unbeatable, arrogant look and clearly expected to walk away with the house and everything else. The attorney handed it over to us and asked if we wanted him to read it out and explain. Luna jumped in, requesting him to explain everything in detail to us because she didn't want us to fight with them after the truth comes out. The lawyer gladly pitched in. The reading, left her fuming. Dad's savings were to be split equally between the three of us, John, Eva, and me. I inherited the trust fund Dad had established years ago. Eva was granted the family house. John received nothing specific beyond his share of the savings. Dad's lawyer explained the reasoning. Dad felt he'd already done a great deal for John during his lifetime, helping him buy the house, setting up his business, and assisting him financially on numerous occasions. Anyone who visits his store could say it wasn't making much money, and the reason was their ineffectiveness. They thought Dad was their jackpot and could forever bail them out. They were also pretty sure they would inherit everything because they felt they were closer to Dad. Luna's face flustered and she was almost seething when she said, "Ain't this some kind of joke? John was his eldest son and the closest person in his life, and he got nothing." She looked at John with disgust and said, "Look what your so-called dad did to you. He left you nothing but peanuts. Are you making me cook for him, take care of him, and assist him to the dock, saying one day he'll give us the house and all his wealth?" She almost cursed my dead father under her breath. Eva and I charged at her, demanding she take back whatever she said. The lawyer had to intervene. Luna stormed out, dragging Jean with her. We came back home hoping to get back to our routine life, but the drama was far from over. It didn't take long for Luna to start causing trouble. Within days, we received a letter from her lawyer claiming negligence on our part that contributed to Dad's death and demanding a review of the will. Eva and I were furious, but not surprised. Luna had always been vindictive, and this was just her way of lashing out. We reached out to Dad's lawyer and will be working with him to take this forward. We're not shying away from fighting for what is ours, but the problem is we live miles away. We have to travel to attend the court hearings, juggling our work and family responsibilities. The lawyer has assured us that Luna has no claim to the house or the trust fund. She has unnecessarily filed a petition to harass us and make us travel so that we miss our work and our family time goes to for a loss. I can't tell you how annoying it is. Like right now, I'm writing this while waiting for my boarding. This is the third travel in 2 months and the case has not even progressed halfway. Luna and her lawyer are just extending it and asking for more time to prove their baseless claim. Not sure how long this is going to take. Eva's frustration has touched the roof and it's a matter of time before she might beat the crap out of Luna's head. I might join her too. It's absolutely infuriating to see Luna manipulate the situation so blatantly, trying to claim the house and other assets, even though it's obvious she's only been interested in them for her own benefit. Her actions during the funeral and the will reading really show how entitled and selfish she is. I can't blame you for feeling frustrated with all the extra travel and hassle, especially when it feels like you're doing the right thing while they're playing games. Hopefully, legal proceedings will settle soon, and you'll be able to get back to your life without this constant drama hanging over your head. Update 1. Here's an update. It took us months to clean up the mess. After the funeral, John and Luna squatted in our family house. We have no idea about it until we visited next for the court hearing. Ava almost got into a physical altercation with Luna, but I somehow stopped her. It was tough fighting with a narcissistic woman, but we stood our ground and worked with Dad's lawyer to claim what was rightfully ours. After months of trial and multiple hearings, the court eventually dismissed all of Luna's claims due to lack of evidence. The judge ruled out any foul play or undue influence and also ordered John and Luna to vacate the family house. While we'd won the legal battle, Luna wasn't done making our lives miserable, especially Ava's. I inherited the trust fund, so there was hardly anything they could do about it except sulk. But Ava inherited the house and became Luna's hot target. Ava lived miles away from the family house and Luna used that distance to her advantage. Even after the eviction notice, Luna didn't back down. If anything, she became more unhinged. She seemed determined to make Ava's life and mine a living hell. Yes. She had vacated the house. She wasn't done yet. A few weeks later, one of our neighbors called the cops complaining about a foul smell coming from the house. Since the house was locked up, cops couldn't get inside, but they inspected it from outside and found tons of spoiled eggs and rotten meat in the backyard, which generated a pungent smell. The cops called Ava and asked her to get rid of this stuff and keep the backyard clean. Ava had to remotely hire a cleaner and get it done. That was not all. The eggs were smeared all across the window panes and the walls. The lawyer suggested Ava install a camera across the house. My parents never felt the need of a camera. The house is in a safe neighborhood, and people have been living there for decades. It's like a small community. Also, John and Luna lived across the street, which made our parents feel safer. Now the same people have become a pain in the butt. Ava got the security cameras installed within a week. What next? Someone had called up the cops complaining that illegal activities were going on inside the locked house. Ava gets a call, and she confirms that the complaint was baseless. But the cops argued the caller had specifically mentioned that the house was locked from the inside to avoid suspicion, but there was shady stuff going on behind locked doors. Hence, they needed to check inside. Ava had to immediately fly and cooperate with the cops or else they would break it open. I don't know what exactly the law is for a house search, whether they need a search warrant or something. I don't know, but one cannot remain calm after this sort of call, right? I advised Ava to sell the house, but she's a fighter. She isn't the type to fold under pressure. She says, I know it's easy to walk away, but this was our home, the place where we grew up. It has memories of our parents. I'm not going to give it up and let that witch win. Honestly speaking, if I were in her situation, I would have surely given up by now and would have sold the house. Maybe that's the reason Dad trusted her with his property and not me. Eva also filed for a restraining order against Luna and John. She got a temporary one for a month, and as soon as it was over, Luna tried to break into the house and even damage one of the cameras. She wasn't going to stop until she wore Eva down. Luckily, this time, everything got captured by the security cameras and Eva was able to secure a 1-year restraining order against Luna. Eva hired a local property management company to ensure the house was well maintained and deter her trespassers. However, that was costly and not feasible for long term. The lawyer advised Luna to rent the house out. Eva was initially reluctant to treat the family house as a money-making business, but that seemed to be the only solution. Eventually, she came along. The challenge was leasing it out to someone who could withstand or maybe blow back at Luna in case she tried to create a nuisance. So we ended up leasing it to an ex-army man, and that made Luna lose her guards. She went into a full-blown meltdown about how Ava had stolen their inheritance. She took to social media posting long rants about Ava and me. She labeled us as ungrateful children who abandoned our parents and only showed up for grabs. She conveniently admitted the years we spent trying to support Dad and the fact that she and John had drained him financially. She went about sobbing about how John and she spent their whole life taking care of my parents and in return got nothing. We were again painted as the entitled kids who manipulate our father to pass on all the inheritance to us and nothing for the adopted son. She didn't even spare the dead my parents and talk trash about them, that blood is thicker than water and how my parents did nothing for them. John, as always, stayed silent, letting Luna take the lead. It's a pattern we've seen for years. He relies on her to fight his battles while he hides in the background. It's just been over a month since the house has been leased and nothing so far has been reported. We hope Luna now minds her business, literally, because what I heard from relatives is that their finances are crumbling of late. So that's it. Thanks for reading. Update 2. It only went south for Luna and John. Last month marked 1 year of Dad's passing away. Ava and I, along with our families, went to the cemetery to pay our respects, and we had a small prayer in our family church. When we got the latest update about them, apparently Luna and John were so consumed fighting the legal battle and making Eva's life miserable that they almost neglected their business. It was never in good shape anyway, but Dad was pitching in now and then to get the ship